my two things going on here. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is Badass Cat with Badass Red Dress Society, and today we are here with our Creating Our Badass Red Dress Life discussion series. We're on month 7, if you can believe that. We've been going for a while, and we've learned a lot of things over the last 7 months. We've talked about awareness and intention. We've talked about the laws of the universe, about who you are authentically. And today we are talking about creating new normals. And so before we begin, I just want to give a little bit about Badass Red Dress Society. We're a tribe of women seeking to transform fear to freedom and to create your authentic journey. We accept women and female identifying persons to explore the whole of who you are, emotionally, sexually, intellectually, and spiritually. And I always like to start by giving acknowledgments to people who support us. So the first person I like to acknowledge is my partner, Mark. He is my partner in life and my partner in business. And I always appreciate his co-creation with me on all things BARDS. And we also have non-monogamous Lifestyles Association that we work together on. And I'd like to thank our member who provides us this lovely space for us to come and be in. It's a very quiet space, a safe space for us to be and have our open discussions where we can really bear ourselves and uplift each other and hold each other in a really safe space. And we hope that you are joining us virtually, and you can do that from wherever you are as well. And I also want to thank the lovely ladies who showed up today in person. Thank you so much. It's always nice to have face-to-face discussions. And for those of you that are joining us virtually, thank you so much as well. We know that if you can't be here, at least you're joining us here, and you can gain the same information and go move along your journey with us, however that works for you. So thank you again, everyone. And so today our topic is creating new normals. Now, most of us have lived a life where we've gone along with the norms of society, at least for a period of time, and sometimes we just kind of have that outward expression that we're going along with what society says, but inside it doesn't feel like we're in connection and in harmony with what we're showing up with on the outside. And I know for me that I've lived most of my life trying to appear in line with mainstream society, because that's where we are most accepted on the outside, but yet on the inside, maybe we've been struggling with that. And so part of what we're going to talk about today is how we make that internal shift to start bringing what's inside outward. And it can be something as simple as just turning negativity into positivity, or it could be something life transforming, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But in most of Western culture and American society, most of our major norms are based, we have 3 basic norms that drive all of society. The first one is monogamy. And that's the acceptable form of romantic and committed relationships between people. Employment as the acceptable form of generating income. And medical practices and pharmaceuticals as the most acceptable form of treating illness. So when you kind of think about these 3 major areas in society, these are the concepts, the beliefs, the ideas that drive how society deems what's acceptable and what we're supposed to do and supposed to engage in.
Do you think that a lot of our norms have been created by religious organizations?
I think over time, religion has certainly played a huge part in that. But what we find, in the research that I've done around norms, is that a lot of norms are really built upon power. And so religion has had a lot of power over millennia, that they're the power within government, they're the power within societies and of course within their own religious kind of communities and sectors. And that the norms that are created are really created by people who are in power, and it's a way for them to continue to be in power and to retain their level of status. Mm-hmm. And that's really where most of our norms come from. And so religion absolutely does play a big part in that. Mm-hmm. But it's not the only part. Okay. But we'll definitely talk a little bit about that. Okay. So as these norms are created by people who want to increase their influence, their wealth, and their position. And so when you think about the concept of monogamy, that comes from a variety of cultures and time frames in our human evolution. And I actually discovered that there are 3 different subsets of monogamy. There is social monogamy, sexual monogamy, and genetic monogamy. But most people don't know that, so they kind of lump them all together, that they see them as just one concept of monogamy. But yet, with social monogamy, it really is what creates our laws around marriage and around what is accepted as we pair off or as we engage in sexual, romantic, emotional connections. Mm-hmm. And so those help to determine our things around land inheritance or wealth inheritance, with building larger armies. In fact, some of the research that I did on this was that monogamy actually provides more offspring that are called legitimate offspring, quote unquote, that are then utilized to build armies and to build countries and power. Wow. And then also to determine social status. So that I thought was very interesting as I was doing my research for this. And then in terms of employment, large corporations create the norms of jobs and employment. So when you look at the factories from the past to the tech industry of today, we are looking at that having a job, having an employer, having a pension, or having some sort of someone else in control of how you earn your income has been created because that's what's good for the people in power. Mm-hmm. And that makes them more money, that makes them a higher level of status, and that's how we kind of get ingrained in, oh well, I need to go to school and get a job. We always talk about that with the students or with our children. Well, what are you going to do when you grow up? How many kids say, I want to be an entrepreneur? No, I'm going to be a firefighter or a teacher or a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer, or, a job. But is that the only way? Mm-hmm. And then within our current medical system, those are imposed through government regulations around medical insurance. And I also found that our pharmaceutical companies actually drive doctor education. And that when doctors are trained, they are trained in how to prescribe pharmaceuticals. They are not trained in how to provide wellness to the body. So in essence, what happens is when we have pharmaceuticals, they want to give us drugs and ways to deal with our illnesses.
And then you rely on them.
And then we have to rely on taking these pills and these chemicals and things for the rest of our lives because we have this illness, rather than treating the root cause of the illness to actually end it and move on from it. And so again, it's about wealth and power and money.
Well, it's interesting because when I left my husband and ended up on Medi-Cal, like the poor people's insurance that I'd never been on my whole career and adult life or life period, and you can get anything prescribed, anything. I mean, not anything that's addictive, but you can get pretty much anything prescribed for free. And I can't get anything alternative for free. Right. I can't get massage for free, or I can't get acupuncture, but I can get
a pill.
I can get, and there's so many that take as needed that I have this abundance of that is just going to be wasted. And it seems such a waste of resources.
Right. Right. But see, these are the things that are ingrained in us from very early on, and they're passed from generation to generation to generation, and they become these social norms in our life where we don't even question things anymore. My big example was when I started changing my eating, I had never once questioned drinking milk, ever. Until someone said to me, you know, humans are the only species that drink the milk of another species on this planet. And I went, huh, that's weird. Why would we be doing that? Do we really need to do that? And then all of a sudden I went, I don't need to be doing this. I don't need to be drinking milk. And I actually feel better not drinking milk. And it's not just the psychological, it's the physical. But no one ever questioned. I never questioned that concept. Oh, we need milk for calcium. We need milk for protein. These are the things that we're fed, that we're told over and over again from the time we're very young, and we learn not to question. And so, as we move into creating our cultural norms, we need to understand that the cultural norms are not the only way. And so that's been kind of my experience, is that inside I didn't fit the norms, but I didn't know any better. I didn't know there was something different. I just knew that whatever was out there didn't really fit with what was in here. But since I didn't know any better, I tried to fit in, tried to do all the things that I was supposed to do.
Push yourself into the mold.
Right, exactly. And so as I was confronted with people when I would do something that was outside the norm, then I would be judged or chastised or shamed or, made to feel guilty for something that I did or something that I thought. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I should put that aside because I'm really supposed to be doing this. And even though this is what felt good to me, other people were telling me that it's bad. So I must be bad because I was thinking this or doing this, and then, is my signs off? My signs off. Here, let me take that down. And so, there's that difference between what's in here and what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, I went down the whole road. I got married and went into monogamy, and I got the job and the house and did all the things that I was supposed to do, but it never truly felt right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how can you relate to something like that? What's been some of your experiences along life and understanding that there's maybe something inside that didn't quite fit, but you went along with what society said anyway because that's what you were supposed to do?
Well, I know even as a young child, I felt different than my family members. I was not like
Mm-hmm.
them. I felt different than other kids in school. I was not. Because of that, I made myself shy and
Mm-hmm.
didn't talk much and stayed away from people as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And even today, I still feel different somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that means, but maybe we all feel different,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
When I grew up, I was always the black sheep. That was
Mm-hmm.
my label.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was very disapproving of all my weirdness. It made me feel super bad about it. Yeah. Still, I don't talk to her. I haven't talked to her for almost 10 years
Mm-hmm.
because I just couldn't handle the disapproval of my choices.
Right.
I was lucky there. My parents kind of let me get away with whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Not bad things, but if I didn't fit in, they didn't seem to mind.
Yeah, I was ridiculed
Yeah, I think a lot
by
of
my
us were.
parent and my sibling.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it didn't feel good at all.
We don't get to pick those parents, do we?
No. No. Yeah, it wasn't until I got to be an adult and got to pick my own friends that were equally as weird as me. Because even in high school, I went to Catholic all-girls high school. So that was very fit the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even my best friend in high school to this day will just say, like if I make some post about my weirdness, she'll be like, "Of course you're doing that," or like, "Of course you're weird," but she'll do it in a loving way, not like my mom.
Right.
That just always felt critical.
Did the nuns swat you with the rulers and stuff? I've heard about that.
They do, yeah.
They do really do that.
Yeah.
I thought it was
I've
just
never
a,
They really
I've
did
never
it.
been hit because I was just like, I'm terrified of nuns, but
Wow.
the boys school got hit. They got hit by with leather straps
Oh,
on their
wow.
hands.
Just want to share.
I'm just thinking.
It's always dangerous when you do that. You know?
I think just, and I mean, I really just tried to please everybody till pretty recently, and even like wanted to be a nun in 8th grade, and then someone told me, oh, you can get married and God will still love you, like someone that wasn't Catholic that like I met, and that was this foreign concept. And so then I thought, well, I just want to be a mom and I just want to get married and do that. So I did everything to make that happen, and it didn't work out so well. But I mean, the mom part did, but the husband couldn't handle being. Anyway, so I think finding my new normal.
Yeah.
And figuring out what is me, and really like now I'm in a place where I'm trying to just be really quiet about it with the people that don't even get it. Because it's just so contrary to what I'm working towards, and I haven't been really well physically long enough to prove to them that like this stuff kind of works. So like with my sister and even with my dad, so it's been a process of just moving forward and working on this, but just kind of like quietly, and then talking about it to people like you instead.
Yeah.
So that seems to be working better, because every time I talk to them about this new idea, and it makes sense when you think of like all that I've been through, and you know, I'm only like 4 years out of this marriage, and I'm still, you know, in a bunk bed in my parents' home. You know, I mean, it's fine, but it's like, feels like some Lifetime movie, and I'm like 3/4 of the way through. Sometimes it's like, when is this all going to come together? And I see it coming, but
Good. It does. It takes some time, and as we are shifting and we're taking responsibility and control over our lives and who we are, and really creating ourselves from the inside out, it is that process, and it's that inside out process that we do the internal work first, and that's a lot of what this whole series has been about. It's been about, you start with the internal work, and now here at month 7, we're on that tipping point of how do we then start moving it outward. And again, that's really up to you and your personal journey and where you are and what you're comfortable with. And sometimes you're more comfortable with certain people than others, or certain situations than others. And so it's finding that balance in that process. And so I continued as I progressed through my life, and my experience was that I was the round peg that was trying to fit into the square box. And I think most of us can kind of relate to that. And so for me, it was I had to get to a rock bottom in order to really make a shift, because without hitting that pain point for me of, I had a stroke at 41, and I knew I had already made 2 attempts to leave my marriage, and at that point that was my full rock bottom. I had hit kind of different low points. Well, I'll call it a rock bottom. But when I hit a stroke at 41, that was kind of my rock bottom, my bottom. And I knew at that point that I could not continue in that relationship, because I didn't have the strength at that point, and I didn't have the ability to work through what I needed to work through in the environment that relationship provided.
Because that environment was what was pushing
It was
you down
right,
in the first place.
right. And and along the way, I've learned to accept that I helped create that environment by being there and by engaging in it, and by not being authentic. I created that environment, which oppressed me. And so, you know, as much as he had his part in things, I had my part in things.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't see that at the time. So it was still that very finger pointing, you know, it's his fault, it's the relationship, it's all these things that are outside of me that are making this happen. So I have to remove myself from that. Mm-hmm. And in that process, I've actually been able to do the healing and to do the letting go of that anger and that pain, so that I can then look at me and say, you know, I am okay, I am good, I am worthy, and I can take responsibility for what I did and what I contributed to that situation. Because when we take responsibility like that, it actually is so freeing. It was one of the most freeing things I ever did, was to actually take responsibility for my part in that relationship.
And that's actually why you started BARDS in
That
the first
is.
place, to
Yeah.
help not only yourself, but to help others get
Absolutely. Out of these situations, or situations of just not being authentic, not knowing who you are, and to really embrace and go deep into who you are and love who you are and embrace who you are, regardless of where you are outside of you, who's outside of you, what relationship you're in. Yeah, it's, you know, many of us struggle with our parental relationships, our sibling relationships, our friends' relationships, because those are all based on norms in society. And when we pull ourselves out of those and we go in here, we get to, it's kind of like finding the eye of the storm. So out there is like all this chaos and things that are happening and you don't fit in. But when you get to the eye and it's clear and it's bright and it's sunny and it's like, oh, it's that reprieve, that's this in here. And that's that core that BARDS is helping to build for women, for myself. And you're right, I mean, I did start this for me.
Yeah, I mean, but you that was kind of a side benefit that you get use out of it too, but
Sure.
everybody does. You're helping others.
Right.
You know, that's something I've discovered, is when you help others do anything, it makes you better.
It does.
Makes you feel better about yourself, and it.
Yeah, it uplifts everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Kind of like what you teach, you do better. If you can
That's
teach
right.
it, then you'll learn more and
That's
be
right.
more humble and be more, you know, at a place where you can practice it.
Yep.
Well, I didn't get more humble, but
I think
you did, actually.
I do. I
think
think
I
part
do.
of it is the
I think
teaching
you
it
did.
and practicing it, or doing
Yeah.
the work at the same time.
It is.
Those two
Oh,
things together
absolutely.
work, and that's what BARDS does, is that
Yeah.
you get to not just, you know, take it in, but then you get to practice it.
Yeah, no, that is so true. So I'm wondering if anyone wants to share if you had a breaking point or if you had an aha moment. Sometimes it's not just a low period that we reach, but sometimes there's something in our life that's an aha. You know, like I said with milk, there was that aha moment of, oh, somebody gave me some information that totally shifted something in my head, and I now had a new way that I could think about something.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yes, I had also an aha moment, because even though I felt like something was wrong, I did not recognize what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know where to look.
Right.
And then about 3 or 4 years ago, all of a sudden, I had an awareness of what was wrong with me and how maybe to repair that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's been working very well.
Very nice. So I'll do a mini coaching. There's nothing wrong with you.
Oh, okay.
You discovered who you really were.
Exactly. I think that's the best way to word it.
You discovered who you really were, and now you're becoming the person that you were meant to be.
True. That's perfect. You are too smart.
Because there's nothing wrong with any of us.
Ever.
Ever.
Well, but you
Ever.
feel like there's something wrong when you think you're not
We
fitting
do, but
in.
again, that comes from society. Those are the norms of society that creep in, and we're going to talk about that.
And then they make us feel bad about
and they make
ourselves.
us feel bad because we're not fitting into their mold, and they're no longer going to have control over us.
Yeah.
And that's that thing that I talked about in the beginning. Is it's about people who are in power, who want to continue their wealth, their status, and their place in society. And if we, as the underlings, are not conforming to what they want, then they lose power.
And then we
and
become the
then
new power.
we become the new power, but that's, they're going to do everything they can. Society's going to do everything it can to hold on and shut down anything that challenges its way of being.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, the LGBT movement, the civil rights movement, all of these things have come around because people have been oppressed, people have been put in a position where they are made to feel less than when they're not
Mm-hmm.
by
That's
society.
true.
And so this is our own personal revolution in BARDS, is to become who we really are. And I think that through our process, it's up to each one of us to find our best way to engage with society, because we do have to engage with society. And how we can do that most effectively and most authentically that will benefit you in the process. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I've dealt with in doing that as we move into the next section. So I have 4 steps to creating new normals. And the first step is making the decision. And that sounds very simple. Oh yeah, I wanted some new normals in my life. But it really does go deeper than that. It's making a conscious and intentional choice to stop listening to other people, to society, and most of all, to those voices in your own head that tell you to continue in the belief system that you've already created. Because what creating new normals is creating a new belief system. And you have already created a belief system up to this point in your life. And how you start to shift that or modify that or move that in a new direction will take a lot. And so this is a very big decision if it's something that you're really wanting to do.
So the voices on the inside have to change.
The voices on the inside have to change too. Because what's happened is we've adopted the voices from the outside and internalized them. And now they've become the voices on the inside. And so it's how, and that's why one of the things that I've talked about is meditation. Because when you quiet those voices, you can actually hear your true authentic self come through.
Because it seems to me that my true authentic self is contrary to anything that would be considered normal. Like now that I've been practicing this a little while, like even the men I'm attracted to, it's like, and I've always had that in me.
Yeah.
I know that. I just listen to other people, but it's so not about looking good on the outside. None of this is about looking good.
No.
I mean, but then I think the more we do this, the more beautiful we become.
That's very true. Because
The more
we
true
become
and real.
true to who we are. And that beauty will shine through. Mm-hmm. It really will. And the thing is that it will shine through to the people who are open to seeing you. And to those that are not, it will look ugly. And it will look bad. And they will be very judgmental about it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of this process, is learning how to let go of that. And sometimes we have to end relationships or sever relationships or walk away from relationships that society says we're supposed to have, we're supposed to keep, we're supposed to, be with these people. But sometimes we need to do what's best for us. And if having people in our lives that are continuously negative and judgmental and oppressing, even just in small quantities, that hurts and that doesn't feel good, and that will continue to diminish you and continue to feed into those old voices. And so it's figuring out one of two things: either figuring out how to be able to engage with someone like that in small enough quantities where you can be okay with that and then let it go, or be able to be okay with saying, I can't be in a relationship with you anymore, and be okay with that. And however they fuss or fight or want to say whatever they're going to say.
I've noticed though that the more authentic I get, the more those people don't want to engage with me at all, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's kind of fabulous.
like
Like they're just so shut down.
Yep, I
and
actually talk about that.
I'm not even meaning
Yeah.
for it to happen. I just, and it's kind of beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. We'll get to that in just a minute.
Oh, I'm getting ahead of.
No, that's okay. That's all right. That's the wonderful thing about discussion is, you know, it naturally flows, and you know, obviously the things that I prepare in a particular way to lead us to those pieces of discussion, and that's why it's a guided discussion. And so, you know, obviously I'm doing a good enough job that you're already picking up on what's coming next. You know, so in that decision, it's ignoring mass media, ignoring friends and family who offer advice, and those voices in your head that want to tell you to stay the course. And those voices in your head will also mess with your emotions. They will do whatever they can to stay the status quo. And part of that, if we go back to our understanding of the law of attraction, is that we've created these voices in our heads, and they're very strong. They have a lot of momentum. And so the law of attraction is going to continue to feed that, and it takes time to make that shift. But it can be done. It absolutely can be done. Just remember, it's incremental steps. And you're going to find that you're pulled back, and then you're going to make steps, and you're pulled back, and you're going to make steps. And then pretty soon you're going to go, oh, I'm not going back as often. Or, wow, now I've really shifted, and I'm on this new path. And very rarely does that pop up. And it's a progression. It's a progression. And so being ready to make that decision, it's both exhilarating and there's a bit of trepidation, because you know that it's work. There's work that's involved. But it's work that is going to bring you so much joy and so much happiness in your life, because you are being authentic. And so what came to mind for me was that after you've made the decision, we have to have a daily practice of how do we move forward. And I'm a big Star Wars fan, and so Master Yoda has a lot of wisdom, and so he has a line that he delivers to Luke Skywalker, and he says, you must unlearn what you have learned. And so that's step 2, is to unlearn the learned. So all of these things that we have learned from society, from our families, from our upbringing, from religion, from our friends, from everything, we tend to accept things as being true. And yet we rarely question whether something is really true or it's true for someone else. And so part of unlearning the learned is learning how to question. Not only question other people, but really start questioning yourself. Questioning the beliefs that you've created. You know, the concept of truth is something to explore. And many people will try to persuade you to see their point of view, and the voices inside you will keep that status quo. But when you start to question, if something in your experience comes up and you hear that voice, whether it's a feeling or an intuition or something that is trying to get you to go in that direction of the status quo, is to recognize that that's part of our awareness. And then the intention is to stop and then question, why am I feeling this way? Why am I thinking this way? What is it that's pulling me in that direction? And is that really the direction I want to go in? Because that's starting to not feel so good. Or that interaction with that person, that didn't really go the way I wanted it to. So how can I shift that? Sometimes we can do it in the moment, sometimes it's afterwards. But it's questioning. It's really starting to question yourself and your motives and the direction of what you're doing, and deciding at that time when you're questioning, is that what I want, or is this what I want? And then what is it going to take for me to make that shift over here to what it is that I really want? And whether that's letting go of a person or a conversation, or just letting go of an emotion and saying, you know, I don't need to be upset about that. That person can say what they want to say. They have every right to say what they want to say. I'm going to be in control of how I choose to respond. And again, it's those normals of when we get a reaction, we have that gut reaction or that knee-jerk reaction to something. It's, well, wait a minute, why am I responding? Why am I responding that way? So what is something that you have an unconscious reaction to that maybe you'd like to change? So mine is when I'm driving. So I get that knee-jerk reaction when somebody does something that I think is really stupid, or you know, somebody cuts you off or whatever, and I get that, and then it's like, okay, wait a minute. There was no accident. It was fine. Nothing happened. I can let it go. Just breathe. It's no big deal.
I get that too. I hate when they cut me off, and I cuss, and then I feel better after that.
Okay.
Then I forget about it.
And then you can let it go. But there's so many people. I mean, I remember before a lot of this is I would carry that for hours.
Oh, yeah.
You know, something would happen, and then I'd get to work. Oh, you know, this jerk, he cut me off, and I would tell everybody that I could get my hands on about this horrible thing that happened on the way to work.
Yeah.
And that just perpetuated it. Instead of, sure, you know, and sometimes we have knee-jerk reactions to things, but then it's that decision of, okay, I don't need to be there. I can let that go. I can move over here and be happy and move on in my direction that I want to go in.
It's so hard to control our subconscious because things happen without us really being in control of it. But if we try hard enough, you can start noticing it and you can control it better.
That's right, and that's where that awareness comes in. Is maybe, you know, some of the practices that I learn is before you're entering into something, whether you're getting into your car, you're going into your work, or whatever it is to be mindful as you enter that environment. And you kind of do a little mini meditation of, I'm getting in my car and it's going to be a wonderful drive, and the drivers are all going to be great, and even if something happens, I'm just going to let it go, and I'm going to have a wonderful drive to wherever I'm going. And it's called pre-paving. It's like you're pre-setting your expectation for what you want to have happen, and then
your chances of
having it happen, because you're putting it out there to the universe that this is what you want. Then the laws of attraction will start to put those things in place. And even though we are a mixed bag and we have different energies and something may come along, you've already then reset yourself to say, oh, I don't need to be upset. I don't need to cuss at that driver. I can just let it go. It's going to be okay. And
it's interesting because I do that every day before I go to work. Like I even have like music I listen to just get me in the right framework because I love what I do. But then there's other situations where like sometimes I'll be asked to do something, so I'll go ahead and do it, and then someone will come along and then question why I'm doing whatever I'm doing that I've been asked to do, and then it's all this conflict. And then I've realized that a person that's that upset really can't hear me at all.
Right.
And I keep trying to just explain myself, so I just kind of parrot it back. I was asked to do this. This is what I'm doing. But I really can't be heard.
No.
And I haven't been able to get past that. You know, and I do have a lot of emotion around it, but I think the emotion's good. It's better than me just shutting down and backing off and like running into a little corner and hiding, which is what I would normally do.
Well, there you go.
But it's interesting because it's like I get this reaction at me, and that's the first interaction, and it's just been really an interesting. I've been like just watching it, but it bugs me. I don't want it to stay with me. I want it to end when it's over, and I don't see it being resolved anytime, probably.
And so
soon or ever.
Right. And again, part of that is recognizing that whatever that person is dealing with is theirs.
And I get that I do get that people that are where there's conflict have their own conflict inside themselves, and it doesn't have anything to do with me. So I guess my question is, like, how do I get to the point where there isn't conflict there? Like, how do I get to myself? Probably not.
No, because life is full of contrast.
Okay, so that's just what life is. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And I had to learn that lesson too. I really had to learn that lesson too.
Well, that's good to know that there's not, that just, that there's not this, like, I can't do more or better. I mean, I can, but not that I'm going to make it end completely.
No.
I saw this movie years ago. It was a Tom Hanks movie called Joe versus the Volcano. And in there, there was a lesson that really caught my attention, and that was that 90% of the public is running on, they're still asleep. They're living their lives while they're asleep. And about 10% are aware of what's really going on. And part of what we're doing is making ourselves part of that awareness team.
That's right.
And not part of that asleep team.
Yeah.
And so really, when they pull out in front of you or they do anything else, most of them are not doing it on purpose. They don't even know what they're doing. They're just drifting through life as best they can without really having an awareness.
Right.
And we don't want to be in that group.
No,
we don't.
no.
When I'm here in California, I live with an alcoholic, and it's extremely difficult. And so I've been in Al-Anon for a long time. And one of the things in Al-Anon, which saves me, is one of my favorite sayings is just keep my side of the street clean. So it's my reactions, and it's how I take things on and how I project. And if I just deal with my own stuff in my own life and just like not engage, it makes things a billion times better.
Is that because you love this person that you would live with them, or is there? I'm just asking, I don't understand it.
It's
so
complicated. It's my ex-husband.
Yeah.
And in California, it's extremely difficult to live by yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's expensive here.
So we're roommates, and I say we have a very healthy codependent relationship.
And that's because of your side of the street.
Because of my side of the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep it healthy. It's healthy. I depend on him for stuff. He depends on me for stuff, and it works really nice. And we have a nice life. We have a beautiful place where we live, and I don't get my needs met, but I just get them at other places with my relationships with other people.
I still love my ex,
And I
but
go
we don't live together.
Huh?
I still love my ex, but we don't live together.
Yeah. Well, it took a long time. I mean, we've been divorced for 9 years.
Oh, that is a long time.
Yeah. And that's also why I live part-time in Washington. So I have my own home up there that's me, and I have my own space and my own friends and my own life.
That's nice.
Yeah. So it might not be forever, but Al-Anon has really helped with a lot of those tools, just like you've been talking about. Like, I'm only responsible for myself and my reactions and how I take things on, and it could be very dysfunctional and dramatic.
Yeah.
But it's not.
I like that concept so much about how you're responsible for how you take things on. Like, you can let things bounce off, or you can let them all the way in.
Yep.
But we actually have a choice into how we respond to things.
Yeah.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Since you're doing that so well, I'm going to also let you be responsible for my actions.
It's not always easy.
It's not. That's true. That's true. It's not.
It's the tool.
Yeah.
You get to practice, and we're not very good at it sometimes.
Yeah. So kind of when we think about
We forget.
beliefs that we have with love, sex, and relationships, the ones that you've built up over your lifetime, are they based in religion or monogamy or free love or kind of your own personal feelings? And one question that I was asked when I left my marriage and I entered into a polyamorous relationship, which really opened the door to all of non-monogamy for me, was someone said, if no one ever told you how to have a relationship, how would you build relationships? And that was such a profound question for me was if no one had ever told me that I had to have relationships in a particular way, or that there was a set way of living your life in a romantic relationship, how would I do it? And I looked back at my own life, and I would have multiple relationships. I had them in high school. I didn't know it, but I did. And I had we'll call them side relationships, where there were people that I met along the way that I had emotions and romantic feelings for that were more long distance. And then when we got together, even though I had a boyfriend or I had someone that I was with, I would make out with them, and I would feel the emotion that I had with them, and I never felt guilty for that until someone told me that basically I was cheating. And it's like, but it doesn't feel like cheating because I met this person before I met this person, and just because I met this person doesn't mean my emotions for this person stop.
Yeah.
And that was back in high school. And then I chose because society said you go this way, family said you go this way, this is what you're supposed to do.
That was what, about 3 years ago?
I wish. This is a long time ago. And so I went down that monogamous road for a long time, and I squashed who I was, and I was told who I was bad, and I internalized that and took that on because I so wanted to fit in, and I so wanted to be loved and accepted that I didn't realize I had to find that in me. I had to love me for me. I had to accept me for me. And I had never done that. I had always looked outside myself. I had always seen that my sense of self-worth came from someone else rather than from internally.
You know, the Mormons almost got it right, only it should be the other way around. There should be one woman and all these men.
And many men. And that's the lovely thing about polyamory, is that it's not polygamy or polygyny, it's that it's equal access for anyone.
Yeah.
So whether you're male or female or gender fluid or however you decide you want to identify, you have the opportunity to have relationships in the way that you want to have them. And non-monogamy takes it, in my opinion, that step further. Is it really opens it up to not be just romantic relationships. It can be sexual relationships, it can be emotional relationships, it can be anything that you desire, and that non-monogamy kind of covers all the different little subsets within the non-monogamous realm. And for me, when I learned about polyamory and the concept that it's called many loves, I also saw that as many ways to love. That it's not just the number of people, but it's the way that I engage.
Right, because you do engage differently with different people.
With different people, and each relationship is completely different.
And love and romance can be much larger than what we normally are taught.
Absolutely, and they can come with or without sex.
Yeah.
It can come with or without commitment. That was the big one. That was the big one for me, was that love and romance could come without commitment.
You mean not till death do us part?
Not till death do us part.
And not only one.
And not only
person.
one. Yeah.
Forever. It's so. Ugh.
Because we've proven so many over thousands of years that doesn't really work.
It really doesn't.
You know.
Yeah.
Even the ones that stay together, they don't really do anything with each other anymore. You know,
they don't talk. They go to restaurants and they don't.
Oh, I
talk.
see it all the time.
It's like before cell phones, they would just sit and they didn't
or
talk
have
the
a
whole
newspaper
meal.
or a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they just. I've even seen them with nothing, and they just don't talk.
They just
the
don't
whole
talk.
meal.
Yeah.
They eat and they barely look at each other, and then they go home.
And then they go home. Yeah, it's like, why did you even go out?
Yeah.
You could have gone out separately and probably had a better time. But it's that commitment, and it's that societal expectation that you stay together forever, regardless of how you feel.
Right.
You know, and so then the other question was the same question, but how do you think about sex? So if no one ever taught you how to think about sex, how would you engage with sex? And so it's those two different dichotomies of a relationship and sex, and they're not exclusive with each other. They'll have to be.
If no one ever told me, I would think, okay, no rules.
Pretty much.
Do whatever feels good.
Right. Feels good and
if it
isn't
doesn't
really
feel good,
hurting
don't
anybody
Isn't
else.
hurting anyone, so
Yeah.
it's, safe and consensual.
Yeah.
And everybody's in 100%, like wanting it, then go for it.
Right.
Why not?
Right. And so kind of using that concept, if no one ever told you, whether it's how to drive, how to have sex, how to engage with your family, anything, you can kind of use that phrase. That's a key in helping us to unlearn what we've learned.
And see who our authentic self is.
See what your authentic self is telling you. What feels good to you? What images, what inspiration, what voices are you hearing in your head of that? It's not the narrator of the society, but now it's your authentic voice coming through.
And the memories that we have from our childhood, a lot of those tell us these things, but we didn't understand them,
Right.
and we didn't know they would be changed.
That's right. That's very true, because as children, we have not been so indoctrinated into society. We are much more free spirits. We are much more authentic the younger that we are. And it's somewhere, I would say, between, nowadays, I almost feel it's like between about 3 and 4 that we start that indoctrination process so heavily.
Yeah.
And I think for our generation, it wasn't really until about middle childhood that we were very indoctrinated into, unless it was a religious indoctrination that came from your family.
So when I was a college student, I took psychology and I did an experiment. So I went to the same elementary school that I went to, and I took a whole pile of abstract art, and I started with first grade, and I went through a whole class of first graders and recorded all their statements about what these pictures looked like.
Cool.
And then the second grade, and all of them recorded. And then by the time I got to the 6th grade, they had no creativity left. They were looking at those pictures and they'd say, well, it's just a bunch of lines and colors. Where in the first grade, they could see outer space and space, you name it. It was like creative beyond comprehension. And by the 6th grade, it was gone.
Wow.
That's scary.
That is scary. That is.
And somehow I went through that same system, but I didn't lose that.
Right.
But I don't know why, but somehow I resisted it. And
Well, but it's also generations, different generations. And like I said, each generation, I feel we are indoctrinating our children younger and younger and younger and younger. And that in our generation, our indoctrination happened later.
Well, I was 19, so not too far.
Right,
from
but still 10 years.
It is still 10 years.
That was 10 years, and there's a lot that goes on in that 10 years.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that was step 2, is unlearn what you have learned. Step 3 is shifting from knowing to understanding. And the way that I express this is that there's a difference between knowing something and understanding something. For me, to know something is to have an intellectual concept and a theoretical framework of an idea, a topic, or a practice. So for example, I know a bit about yoga. And I know there's various positions to hold your body in. I know there's a purpose to each pose, which is supposed to bring mind, body, and soul in harmony. But I can't say I understand yoga because I'm not currently engaging in it. And even at periods of my life when I have engaged with it, I didn't have an instructor that actually taught me how to do that integration of mind, body, and soul through the poses. So while I have a knowledge and I know some things, I don't have an understanding. And the way I also look at this is that when I know something, it's up here. It's in my head. It's kind of intellectual. When I understand something, it's here. It's in my heart, that I've embraced it and it's kind of sunk into who I am and become a part of who I am. And so when I entered into living my ethical and consensual non-monogamous life, and I'll call it ECNM life for short, I had a basic knowledge of what polyamory was, what swinging was, but I really didn't have a clue about how to engage in relationships in a non-monogamous way. Because I was still bringing much of my monogamous points of view, understandings, practices, emotions, and responses into multiple relationships, which is what I think a lot of people do when they come into an ECNM relationship. Is they're coming from monogamy, they're coming from a society that feeds them monogamy. In all our movies and our music and everything is all about monogamy, but we're trying to have these multiple relationships, these non-monogamous relationships, but we haven't made the shift. We haven't really embraced and understood what the difference is in having a non-monogamous relationship versus a monogamous relationship. So when I started, there was that knowledge. I had a basic understanding in my head, but I hadn't really fully embraced it. And so I kind of stumbled through my first couple years of figuring out what it meant and how to live that life differently. And so now, after 6 years of living an ECNM life, I've read many books, many blogs. I've connected with people in groups, both virtually and in person, to learn how to have successful, healthy, non-monogamous relationships. And so it's that it's fully incorporated now, and I can say very clearly I understand how to have an ECNM relationship. I don't just know it up here, I understand it here. So is there something in your experience that you've kind of made that shift of when you started, you kind of knew it up here, but maybe now you embrace it in here? Or something that you want to do in that arena? It's open to anyone.
I can't think of anything at this moment that fits that category.
Or something that you've already experienced.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I want to experience that I envision is the whole poly household. But it was interesting because when you were talking before, I had this vision of when I was working on my bachelor's and being in the dorm and how wonderful it was like to have my own room, because I did have my own room, you know, towards the end. And it was nice to be able to like close my door. But then there were like 30 other people I could connect with at any moment's time. So I was thinking, you know, because I really, and I am kind of living that solo poly life because I've got, you know, my own home with my son and my dad, and that I keep really sacred. And then I just go and, you know, see partners, and I get something different from everyone. And it's interesting because like hardly any of it's sexual. It's been really kind of funny, but I'm getting something from, or I have something to offer with, you know, all these men. So it's been an interesting experience, but I like the idea of like a dorm kind of setting where like I've got my own little kitchen and my own everything I need, but if I want to, I can go out and like make plans and do this like communal cooking thing. And, you know, I go do laundry and there's someone else to talk to. It's just an interesting, that's kind of where I see myself headed. And then part of it too is like being a parent, and even though I have one child, like I'd really like more, and he's like 11, so I'd like more babies in my life at some point. So that would be a nice way to bring that in, you know, with younger people. And it doesn't mean that it all has to be sexual at all or not, but it's just this whole idea of like together we can do this. And I love to cook, but I don't want to do dishes or cleaning, so I'd love to have someone else do that for me.
So the idea of kind of communal living is a lot of people, they have that idea, that concept, that knowledge, you know, I can envision what that would look like, but to actually put that into practice, it's a very different process in learning how to engage with a live-in community. The structures that need to happen, the communication that needs to happen, and the negotiation that needs to happen, so that when things do come up, how do we resolve things? How do we bring up something that's difficult? Or how do we bond together as a community to rally around someone who needs support? those are all things that we can kind of have that intellectual knowledge about, but until you're really in it and you're learning it and you're experiencing it and you're engaging in it, that understanding, that's how that understanding comes, is through that engagement and working it and figuring it out.
And I know there's people that are doing it and have done it, to learn from. It'd be really nice to just, it'd be great to just like get sick and then be like, oh, okay, you guys will take over. And then, okay, someone wants to go on vacation, or then, okay, then we'll, and it's like you just all take turns, and it's not like all this kind of pressure of being it all on your own.
Right, right. And one of the other benefits of communal living is then there's also shared resources. So, not everybody has to own a car. Not everybody has to own a lawnmower. Not everybody has to own, everything. When you have a communal kitchen, you might have maybe 2 or 3 of things for, a household of 15 or 20.
And even food costs less if you can buy it from, and to cook.
Right.
Cooking for one is the most expensive, most difficult.
It really is.
Even 2 or
Even cooking for 4 versus cooking for 20.
The cost
difference is huge. And so when you're sharing resources, it does bring an abundance of everything to everyone. And and so that's, again, that societal norm that we all have to have our own little house and our own picket fence, and we have to attain all these things. For me, I need to have the boat and the RV and the this and this and this, but then you have to have your own, and you have to have your own, and you have to have your own. Well, why couldn't we all share that?
Or why can't we just like buy a hotel where there's these little cottages? You each have your own little cottage. That's okay. That's better than the dorm.
There you go. Or you find a property and you create the tiny houses.
Right, and you make your own.
And you make your own.
You build them your own.
And that way, if anybody at any time wants to pick up and go somewhere else, all they do is hitch up their tiny house and off they go.
I understand the Bates Motel's for sale. When I first became single, I felt like I needed to be pampered. And so I actually moved into like a retirement home thing. Because when they showed it to me, it was a beautiful apartment, and they do all the cooking, they clean, even including the bathroom. They clean the bathroom completely every week.
Wow.
And vacuum. And
like
so you don't have to cook. You don't have to buy groceries. You don't have to wash dishes. And it worked for about 3 months, and I said, tired of this. But, it really made me feel pampered and protected, and had this community of people around me. And it didn't take me long to get rid of that, but I needed it at that moment, know what I'm saying?
Sure.
That's interesting.
And it was a good way to do it, and so that's, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm getting to the core of it, but I see what you're saying.
And again, it's it's up to everyone what works for them.
Right.
So if communal living isn't something that would work for you, then that's okay. It's certainly not for everyone. I'm
basically living by myself now for the first time in my whole adult life. I always was in the dorm or in the whatever, or married, or
Right.
And now I'm really by myself, and I really love it.
Nice.
And if I clean the bathroom, it's still clean when I come back.
That's true.
That.
That's true. Yeah.
Up in Port Townsend at my house, I have a space, it's not a full apartment because it doesn't have a legal kitchen, but it does have like a little kitchen without a stove. And so I don't want to rent it out. I'm afraid to rent it out to somebody and get a personality that doesn't jive with me. So I'm just going to do short-term things. So when I was up there, I was at the community concert, and I stood next to this guy, and we started chatting. And he was some guy that was in town for the summer, couldn't find a place to stay, so he was camping out at the fairgrounds, and he lived in Arizona, but he was just like checking out, trying to move there, right? And so I'm like, well, I have a room for rent. And so he came over the next day, and it turned out we had the same birthday.
Oh my
Not
gosh.
the same year, but so he moved in and was there for a month, and it was really lovely. Like he helped me when I got the house, the people that had lived there for 2 years had let the garden go totally.
Mhm.
So he helped me with yard work. He took the trash to the curb on
Nice.
garbage day. It was just so pleasant to have somebody there.
Oh.
Yet he had
Yeah.
his space,
Oh,
and then we didn't
space.
even lock our doors. Like you know, he had a lock,
Yeah.
but I didn't lock my space. He didn't lock his space, and we chatted every couple
Nice.
days, and it was just really lovely to have
Yeah.
somebody there. And I was kind of bummed when he decided to go back to Arizona at the end of the month.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to find those connections.
It is,
isn't it?
and
Yeah.
it was literally like I stood next to him and started talking to him.
Great. Law of attraction.
Stranger, yeah.
You know,
Law of
sometimes the
attraction.
harder you search, the less chances of finding the
I
person
know.
is. It
That's
has to
true.
kind of happen on its own.
I
That's
know.
right.
It
The
does
laws
have
of-
to
the
happen
laws of the
naturally.
universe.
That's right.
Of course,
The
he had to
laws
meet
of
my
the universe.
girlfriends first.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
At the next week's concert, he had to meet my two of my best friends, and then
There
they
you
were
go.
like, "Okay, he's okay. He can move into Jen's."
That's good to have a second opinion.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't
But-
always trust myself, but
Well, there you go. But
Yeah.
you can learn to trust yourself.
yeah, that
And-
was definitely a law of attraction.
Nice, very cool. So, step 3, just to recap, was to shift from knowing to understanding. And step 4 is shifting from understanding to embodiment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where that's that kind of scary, I'm taking this out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Stop.
You're going to implement.
We're
your-
going to implement
Like what
who
you're
we
doing
are,
right here.
what you're doing. Yeah.
Like this whole
Yeah.
shebang thing you're putting on Facebook right this second.
Yeah, find my Facebook.
Like, wow. Because I looked and I was like, because I wanted, I was like, what time does it end? And let me just check. And then it was like, okay, you are now live on Facebook.
Yeah.
Here's the link. I was like, wow.
Yeah, so we're
It's very real.
we're going a little long today, but it's it's a big topic. You know? So this is where you've embraced your ideas, your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings in your heart, and you're beginning to show up differently with your words and your actions. So a lot of times that internal work we do privately. And our words and actions are still kind of along the lines of society or along the lines of what our old belief systems were.
Right.
But yet internally, we're starting to make those shifts. And maybe we do them privately, in the car when we're driving, or in how we're engaging with a small number of people who really know us and we trust. But as we start to embody our new normals, we're going to speak differently, we're going to react and respond differently, and we're going to treat people differently based on what we decide our truth is. And so so I follow someone on YouTube named Jay Shetty, and if you haven't heard his stuff yet, it's really, really great. And I can post that in our group somewhere. But he's a young man who became a monk for a period of time so that he could really learn how to engage with himself and kind of that higher power within himself. And now he's come out of that, and he teaches people all kinds of inspirational, spiritual things. And one of the things that he talked about in a video I saw recently was how there's 3 main parts to us as humans. There's our head, our heart, and our hands. So it's basically our intellect, our emotions, and our actions. And so when those are in harmony, and when we think good things, we feel good things, we say good things, and we do good things. And those are good things for us, not about pleasing society, not about pleasing other people, but about what feels good for us. And so through this journey of creating new normals, you're deciding to think what you want to think, to feel what you want to feel, and to act how you want to act because of it making you feel good. It's what your truth is, what your beliefs are, and what your normals are. It's not about what society says. It's not about what your friends or family say. It's about you. It's all about you. And as we talked earlier, that you're only responsible for you. You can't be responsible for anybody else. You can't be responsible how they're going to react, what they're going to say, how they're going to feel. If you're being authentic in the moment, you're being authentic in the moment.
And there's nothing better than
And
that.
there's nothing better than that. And if somebody wants to get upset at that or take it personally or whatever, then that is up to them. Oh, it says my life, you can't continue. So let's see if I can try that again. All right.
Sorry.
Nope, we're gonna go back to go live. Okay, try it again. Okay. So, let's see. So as we embody what we think, we feel, we say, and we do, then those beliefs are going to shine through, as we talked about earlier. That authentic you starts to shine through. And so how do you envision yourself being different as you embody new normals in your life? And new normals could mean really anything for yourself. It could be just a shift in, like we talked about, our driving, or how we react to something, or something as big as how we want to redesign our life to living a communal non-monogamous life, or it could be anything in between, but just something about a new normal that you want to create, and how can you envision that for yourself?
I feel like that over the last 4 or so years I have been working on that direction, and I feel like I'm about 90% there.
Beautiful.
And so I kind of can see what that future is looking like, because it's going to, but I'm very close, and I'm excited, and it's all better. I really have never been happier before in my whole life. And I think it's going to get even better.
It will. It certainly will. Yeah.
It's just one of those things. You have to, like you said, make a decision and make it happen. You can't just hope it's going to happen by itself. You've got to put yourself at risk.
Yeah.
And
that's the next piece.
And it's scary. I'm sorry.
No, you're all great.
But it's scary, but when you do it, you're glad you did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
As uncomfortable as it is, you still have to do it.
Yep. Yeah.
New stuff is scary.
It can be. Yeah. Well, like my bicycle trip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I rode 200 miles. 200 miles.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Never would have thought I'd ever do that.
And you survived
I survived, and I thrived, and I did amazing.
And you enjoyed it.
I had a great time.
So even though it was scary, you still enjoyed it.
I still enjoyed it. Yeah.
And now you're glad you did it.
I'm glad I did, and now I get to do more. It's inspired me to continue doing it. And in fact, Mark and I went out last night, and we rode to Santa Paula for dinner. Yeah. And then rode back in the dark.
You're not afraid.
And that was a little scary.
Yeah.
But it was, you get out of your comfort zone and you try something new. So, yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I think I'm taking more responsibility for myself. It's not all this stuff coming at me and other people being, mean. It's like more of, like, I feel like I'm kind of holding my own better.
Great. Nice. Did you want to share or not? You don't have to share.
For me, it was being very firm that I needed to have a place in Port Townsend, because that's where I really feel the most home and comfortable, and where my heart is. And so to make that decision to go up there and rent a house, and got all my stuff out of storage, and at a time, and this is the other thing, is like my business had imploded last summer, and so I did it on a hope and a prayer that I was going to pull it together, and I just stayed in that place of like, I'm running a business and it's going to come back. And sure enough, as I was driving up north to my new place, I pulled it together enough money to like pay the deposit and the rent and everything. I had a phone meeting on my drive up there that landed a job. Not a job, but a client that totally transformed everything. And so literally by the time I landed, I was back on track.
Hey.
And so, but that was, that was a huge step, even to commit to having this like back and forth life. And I'm still feeling, like I don't really want to be here, but my whole point is I want to go back and forth. And now that I've I just got back a week ago, so I hadn't even seen any friends or anything yet. So this is the first friend thing I've done. So yeah.
It's interesting though how when you can take a risk like that, and that's so contrary to society, that things just come at, like, everything. It's like you get more than you need.
Yeah.
When you take that risk for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely
For your own
putting the
self-care.
practices into work.
It is.
Because I had to implement a lot of the things that I have learned and work on for myself, like staying through the summer, staying in the place of high vibration, like financially and business wise, knowing that it was just a slump instead of like thinking that, oh my God,
Right,
now I'm
it's
just in
over.
this, it's over
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Right.
And knowing that it was going to come to me and just staying in the place of receiving.
Yeah.
And moving and having inspired action.
Yes.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like you can do the law of attraction and want all these things, but unless you take the inspired action to make them happen.
And you have
right.
to take the steps.
Yeah.
And actually, it is action, because you
Yeah.
have to do
Yeah.
something.
Right. But it's action that comes from the authentic voice.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
And that's why meditation
key.
works so well, is because you're quieting all those other outside voices and you're allowing your authentic voice to come through. And sometimes it's an impulse, and you're just going through your day, and all of a sudden I need to go over there. And you don't really know why, but we need to go over there. And then you go over there, and then you meet somebody like at that concert, and then you had this guy for a month, and it worked
And
out
then I got
really
rent.
well, and
I
you
got
got rent for a month.
half my rent paid for the month.
And so it's those kinds of things that are the inspired actions that we don't always recognize. We want to effort our way, and we want to take action sometimes before we're even ready.
Yeah.
But it's being able to just be present in the moment, understand it's not the end, it's just a dip. And if I stay present and true, it will come, and the inspired action will come. And it always does. It always does. That's the beautiful thing. It always does. But as we said, living a life which is outside the adopted and accepted norms within a society does come with risk. And sometimes that risk could be a minor risk, or it could be a major risk. And for me, I've had some major risks, and I've had some major things happen in my life because of the choices that I've made. Things around the relationship with my daughter and custody and the divorce, which a lot of people have experienced when they open up about multiple relationships or a non-monogamous life. We talked about self-selecting. I've had two of my closest friends in the last couple years. They completely self-selected out of my life. And what I realized is that my energy level had risen to such a place that their energy was no longer a match. And so whatever happened, the universe put something into play where they basically said, yep, I can no longer be your friend. And I actually had one that had the guts to say that to me, and I really appreciated that she could actually call me up and say, I love you, you're my friend, but I don't agree with this piece of your life, and because of that, I can no longer be your friend. And I said, that's fine. I said, I appreciate that you took the time and the energy and the care to actually call me and tell me that, rather than just letting it fade away. And then I had another friend that there was a conflict that happened, and literally she just dropped me. I never heard from her again. And so I kind of appreciate at least the one that could communicate, here's where I stand. I want to be your friend, but because of this situation, I don't feel I can do that. Okay, you know what? I love you too, and if you ever change your mind, let me know.
You know how you can tell if they're friends? Because they're always there when they need you.
When they need you. There you go. There you go. But yeah, there's people who will self-select out of your life. And part of it is also allowing people to self-select out of your life.
It's interesting because they all go away. It's not like you have to do anything.
Other than be yourself.
Right, other than be your true authentic self or the best you can.
Right.
Which is
But those are not people
not
you want
easy.
to have around you anyway. So.
Exactly. And
Not at all.
and part of what I find is that and we're talking about this in the 5 Levels of Attachment book that we've been doing our book study with, So when we let go of things, it actually creates space for new things to come in.
Definitely.
And so my little
good
visual
stuff.
is, you know, if I'm holding a cup and I'm holding it with two hands, how it's really hard to pick up this piece of paper because my hands are full.
Mm-hmm.
But if I put the cup down and I let it go, now my hands are free.
Mm-hmm.
So it's being unattached to whatever it is, a person, an idea, a place, a thing, that I can let it go. I can always pick it up again.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could just let it go and be done with it.
Right. Because now you can make that decision. Is this helping my life or making it worse?
Exactly. That's so true. And that's all about that awareness, the intention, everything that we've been building in these past 6 months as getting us to this place where we're creating these new normals. That new normal is questioning. That new normal is deciding what is best for you.
Mm-hmm. When you were still in your marriage, you kept holding on to it, even though you didn't really want to be part of it, but you didn't know any better.
I didn't. And even I tried 10 years. It took me 10 years to get out. I tried 3 times in 10 years. And each time.
And you're not even blonde. And
I'm not even blonde. And I stayed. But it again was that societal pull of, well, it's best for the children, and you know, you have a child, and you know, having 2 parents and all that crap, which really was a disservice along the way.
Yeah.
And you know, had I gotten out when she was 3 years old, my life would have been very different.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be who I am today either.
Yeah.
And I love who I am today.
And you probably would. You might not be here.
And I
doing
might not be
this.
here.
You might have married someone else.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
thought
right. I
that
would have
was the
jumped
answer.
in and continued down that monogamous relationship rather than being where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't look back on it with regret or judgment for myself or for him. It was what it was. The universe put things in place for when I was ready, and now I'm living my life.
Yeah, a
And
friend
I'm
of
very
mine,
happy.
she was in a relationship. She was married, and they had 3 children, and he beat her. So she left. But then after a few months, she realized she couldn't support them. So she went back into that. And it got worse for her. But she stayed because of the kids.
Yeah.
The kids turned out good. I've met them. And he died finally. And she stayed with him until he died.
Yeah.
And she hates him so badly. That's all she can talk about. She's so bitter in her life.
Yeah.
And she's depressed all the time because all she has are these bad memories. And,
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll get in touch with her.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So then my final thing, which we'll move through, is benefits of creating new normals. So even though there's risks, there's lots of benefits. And you get to choose the life that is you. You get to be happier and healthier. I'm a better parent today than I was 8 years ago because I'm showing my daughter how to be authentic. I'm showing my daughter that I will love her unconditionally no matter who she is, and that I love myself unconditionally for who I am. And that it truly does bring abundance, liberation, and freedom to your life in ways that you can sort of imagine right now, you can envision, but also in ways that you can't even begin to imagine. And that's the beauty of the universe is, you know, things will come your way and all of a sudden, you know, wow, this really happened. This really came to me. This is great. I couldn't have imagined this 6 months ago. And now look at where I am. And now look at what I'm doing. And now look at where things are going. And then the doors just keep opening. I keep going. So if you have benefits that you can imagine, or if you've already experienced along your badass red dress journey, if you want to share.
Sure.
Yes.
So, a few days ago, my little alarm and light on my dash came on saying I have low tire. And I got out and I looked at them and they all looked great. So anyway, I went to a tire store over on Thompson, and so I get out and I park right in the middle of everything where you're not supposed to, and I go in and talk to the manager, and he says, "Oh, no problem, just move your car over a little. I'll take these cars out of the bay, and you can pull yours in." And of course I was all dressed up, you see, and then he ordered one of the guys to come over and do it, and I walk around and talk to the guy all around, and it was, the reason they did that was because I'm a lady, you know, and they didn't charge me. I said, don't you guys usually charge? Yeah, well, okay, but they wouldn't charge me. And do you think that could have happened before? No.
No. Oh, no.
Would not have happened.
In
fact, I would have waited 30 or 40 minutes until they finished with whatever they were working on.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Before they pulled them out, but not that time.
And that's never happened
Just-
to me, even though I am a lady. I mean, I've never had that kind of like where the cease part for me. Like I've never, so that, you know, you've got something extra special. I'm just saying.
It's the energy.
It is.
It's the energy.
Yeah.
And that as our energy moves up that scale and we reside in the higher levels of energy, those are the things that come.
Yeah.
Those are the types of things that come to us.
My self-confidence levels
your,
are higher than they've ever been in my whole life.
Yeah.
That's what it is then.
Yeah.
And I'm just comfortable with who I am, and that makes a difference.
It does. It really does. And it's like your client, you know, you were on your drive, you were open, you were receiving, and boom, your client came and totally transformed your business.
Yep.
And so there's things that, you know, I've said in the last 6 months, I have generated access to over $20,000 in my experience. And that is truly amazing to me. I think about that. It's like, wow, where did all this come from? Where did this abundance come from? And there were things that were in place, but it's the energy.
And you're telling yourself that you should have it.
That I should have it. That's right. That
You know,
I deserve
it's not like
this.
it shouldn't
that,
be here.
You know,
You're not saying, "Oh, I'm never going to get anywhere. I'm never going to get."
Right.
No, you were telling yourself, "This is what I need, and this should be here. This is what I deserve."
Yeah, this is what I deserve. We're getting the house on the market. We're getting the bikes. We're doing this. We're doing this. And along the way, this is what we need in order to make this happen. And we need this money to make this happen. And boom, it shows up, and it shows up, and it shows up. And that's all about that energy. And it's something that we cultivate day in and day out. It's the meditation, it's the internal work, it's that process of truly loving yourself. And that happens day by day by day by day. And incrementally those steps move you forward until like you know, you all of a sudden go, wow, I couldn't have imagined 6 months ago that I'd be where I am today. Or a year ago, or 5 years ago, or whatever it is, you know, that you can be able to look back, and I know that you have things that you've even experienced and say, wow, you know, a year ago I couldn't have imagined being where I am right now.
Like I paid because I was out of work for 4 months, so even just that 4 months of being out of work, I can't remember how long I was out of work before then, but then just, I mean, like I had no voice. And so, you know, and now I'm back at work, and I haven't even been cleared to go back, like by the doctors.
Right.
But I'm working, and things are coming.
Yeah, you even turn down jobs sometimes.
There you go.
Because they come up, but you've got plenty to do already.
Right, like it's true. Huh, that's right.
There you go. See, abundance prevails.
And then it was interesting because this weekend, no jobs came through, but then I had things planned that I would have preferred to do anyway.
Right.
So it was interesting, and I ended up, and I have enough.
There you go.
And that's a new feeling, because that 4 months I didn't, and like no voice, and not being able to really get out of bed. And now I'm not just working, I'm doing lots more that's good.
Fabulous. So that is our guided discussion on creating new normals. So thank you for watching our video series. Thank you, ladies, for being here and participating in our discussion. If you find this video helpful, please make a comment and like it, and subscribe to our channel. And until next time, I am Badass Cat with Badass Red Dress Society, and cheers.